Hello, welcome back to my... Oh boy. Well, oh, that's funny. Well, that part was very unexpected, but I had to share with you guys because that's just my real life. But this video is really important to me, so I want you to buckle up and join me in today's video. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, thank you so much for showing up. Today, I am going to be diving into a lot of information. This information is going to be filled with a lot of heart, a lot of vulnerability, but this season in my life is all about my 2.5 years of healing. Where I've come from, like where I started 2.5 years ago, to where I am today. I am going to be showing pictures of one of my heaviest weights and where I am today. I'm going to be talking about food struggles, but I definitely have learned to overcome a lot of those. I'm going to be talking about my relationship with alcohol, where I was, and how I've progressed through that time. I'm choosing to open up and be a little bit more vulnerable around these issues because so often in life, especially as women, we feel like we are alone in these things. We have to be the one who shows up for everybody else, and we lose sight of showing up for ourselves. It's so easy to push what is important to us on the back burner or not even know what is important to us. We need to know that we are not alone in these struggles with our weight loss, with our struggle with food, with the way that we're feeling, and being able to show up for ourselves. There's so much healing and growth in focusing on yourself, and knowing that you're not alone in these struggles is something that I have learned over these last 2.5 years, because for so long, I felt like I was alone. I was the only one who was struggling with these issues. I'm crazy. I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to be able to fix things in my life. I realized that is not true, and I was lying to myself a lot around those areas. So today I want to let you guys know I'm going to be opening up this chapter with me doing my 7th injection. I am on Tirzepatide, and I started that 7 weeks ago. 6 full weeks. This is going into my 7th week. I am doing this under doctor supervision. This is my own journey. I am by no means a doctor or a therapist, so please consider this my journey and how I have learned to grow, heal, and change some aspects of my life that I've struggled with for a really long time. I want to share these things because we are not meant to do this alone. So let's dive in to my 7th shot. All right, we are going to take the 7th Tirzepatide shot. I'm at 20 units, which I believe is like, 4.2 milligrams or something like that. I'd have to double check to see the exact, but somewhere around there, 4.2 milligrams. I just looked, it's 4.4 milligrams for the 20 units. So that's what this package says. 4.4 milligrams, 20 units. Thought I'd throw that in there for an update. So let's dive into it. One of the biggest things that I've realized going through GLP-1s, semaglutide, tirzepatide, whatever you're on, is that so often we as women, I use women, I'm sure there's men also, I can relate well with women. I realize that we are doing this journey alone. We're scared to tell people because we feel like the judgment is going to be on us if we talk about the things that we struggle with. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with my eating habits, emotional eating. It's something that I still am working through, but have made so much progress over the last 2.5 years. We also struggle with our weight. We struggle with alcohol. All of these things are things that we feel like we are doing alone. I know I briefly talked about that. So today, that's really what we're going to dive into is, why are we holding on to these things? Why are we doing these things alone when we're all struggling. All of us. That doesn't make us broken. That doesn't make us failures. That doesn't make us any less of people and human beings and amazing women. It is about learning how to navigate, cope, adjust, change some of the habits that we have held on to for so long, and knowing that you're not doing this alone. 2.5 years ago, when I started my transition into focusing more on my weight loss, I had a friend and I was talking to her about my weight loss, and she's like, well, why haven't you ever gone to a doctor? I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do that. I can't ask for a doctor. That means that there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I can do this all by myself. Literally my thought process. I could not ask for help. I'm stronger than that. I can do this by myself. Okay, I've tried my whole life to do this by myself, and it's always this all or nothing mindset, and I do really good. I'll lose weight, and then I go back and I gain, and then guess what? Typically, I end up on gaining more than what I lost. So it's been this vicious cycle of gain weight, gain more, lose weight, gain more. So it's just constantly gaining more and more weight. Here are some pictures of what I look like at one of my heaviest. So I'll put it right here so you guys can kind of see what I look like at my heaviest. It's embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. It is embarrassing that I allowed myself to get that heavy. Now, is this as heavy as some people that are out there? No. But for me, this is the way that I feel in my heart. I'm not downgrading anybody who looks heavier or looks like they weigh less or anything like that. This is not a place to be degrading other women or talking down to other people's journeys, because everybody's journeys, everybody's life is so different. And this is a place where I'm opening up and just sharing some vulnerable aspects of my life and where I was the heaviest. It's so embarrassing to look at this picture and see how freaking heavy I actually allowed myself to get. I believe my heaviest was like 220 something pounds. The highest that I have on my scale was 212, which shows right here. That's embarrassing. That's a lot of freaking weight. I am 5'9", but that's a lot of weight to carry around. So when I was talking to my friend, she was suggesting talking to a doctor. I was finally at a place where I was like, you know what? Let's go. Let's freaking go. The very first time I went into my weight loss doctor, she was talking to me about my eating habits. She's like, what do you eat now? How much do you weigh? What's your goals? How much water do you drink? What's your protein intake? And I'm just like, good question. She asked me to start tracking, and I instantly felt scared. I felt traumatized. I felt like, oh my gosh, here we go again, the vicious freaking cycle, because I have done that whole weighing and tracking food. And when I did that, it would work for a little while, but there was never a long-term stability with it. So she looked at me and said, hey, Stacia, that's okay. Because I told her this, I explained to her that I do not want this all or nothing mindset anymore. I'm so sick of putting in all this effort and trying these things and then not having them actually last. I want to be real. And in this moment, when I was talking about tracking, it was a huge trigger for me because I know it's never worked for me in the past. So why in the heck is it going to work for me now? I felt this was important because maybe you struggle with that too, that your doctor's wanting you to track or do something like that. And it just hits deep because it's not easy and you have to put in a lot of work when you're actually tracking or weighing your food. So I just want to hit on that point. There are other options and you can start smaller than something that feels so big. She's like, keep things so simple. Just focus on eating 3 meals a day. And then when we see you again, we'll reevaluate how things are going. So I see her again and she's like, have you reached out to the therapist? I'm like, no, I haven't. You need to do that, she says. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think you're right. So I finally reach out to my therapist. And in that moment, between working with my therapist and working with my weight management doctor, things finally started to shift over time. Over time. This is so important. Me, I want things to happen right now. That's the way I've always been. That's the way most of us are. It's like, okay, I ate 3 salads. Why did I gain weight? right? Can you relate to that? Because that is something that I feel like all of the time. I look back at some of my pictures of when I'm the heaviest, and it is so embarrassing that I got that way, but it's because I constantly am chasing something that I want to happen overnight rather than actually implementing a life and a lifestyle that fits into my life, a lifestyle that is one that I can wake up to and be proud of. I'm chasing this fix to happen right now. Well, I didn't get here overnight. That didn't just wake up I did not just wake up one morning and end up like this. That took time to get there. So I truly leaned into the process and I started putting in the work. This is where the transformation started to happen. Working with my therapist and my weight loss my weight loss doctor. Now, she did, when I first started, the first couple of years, I was on Topramate, a small dose of Ketamine, and I did start to implement metformin a little bit into my life. I was not very consistent with the metformin at all, but I was pretty dang consistent with the Topramate and the Ketamine. I did have to titrate off of both of those, so I'm not taking either of those anymore. But it was just kind of like a little bit of a jump start, like, okay, you know what? I can do this. By this point, I started seeing results and it felt good, but inside I was still struggling. I couldn't keep living in the body that felt so heavy and exhausted. My doctor suggested I reach out for more help, and that's when my gynecologist stepped in. The picture on the left is me with no confidence, exhausted, using food to cope, breaking promises to myself, and feeling stuck. The picture on the right is me starting to gain energy and confidence, keeping my promises, prioritizing my health and mindset, and learning to love the woman I see in the mirror again. She recommended me seeing a gynecologist. So this brings in a third doctor. I go to my gynecologist and I find out that I have PCOS and endometriosis. Little to my dismay, I don't know, little to my knowledge, there we go. Little to my knowledge, that affects weight so much. I didn't realize how much those symptoms affect weight. I also have like hair that grows underneath of my chin. And this is kind of a spoiler alert, which you may have already seen on my last vlog, but I actually started laser hair removal. The hair under my chin drives me crazy. It's coarse, dark, and I feel like I'm always plucking. It makes me super self-conscious. But I realized that these are all symptoms. So that doctor prescribed me with Slind. I still am on Slind today. This is the start to where I'm like, okay, I'm actually starting to feel a little bit more normal. Like, this is what people feel like. It was such a good feeling and something that I had not felt in a really long time. Mind you, I was working on my mindset with my therapist. I was working on my weight management with my doctor. And between these two, my weight management doctor and my therapist, they truly helped me overcome my binge eating disorder. I can't even tell you the last time I binged. Have I overate? Sure, I've overate a couple times, but there is a total difference between binge eating and overeating. And those of you who have ever struggled with binge eating, or maybe even still today you struggle with binge eating, you know the freaking difference between overeating a little bit and binge eating. I tell you what, I did not ever realize how big of an impact binge eating had on my life. And it was, obviously with the picture that you saw from right before, it affected my health immensely. My mindset, the things I thought about, I would live in this shame and guilt and hatred for myself because of choosing to choose food over anything else. I guess I realized that growing up, I didn't have the tools to handle some of those emotions, and I always just chose food. That gave me the comfort that I needed. In all reality, it was really doing the adverse. So as I'm progressing, these changes have really impacted me, and I started seeing weight fall off little by little. I started working out a little bit more and implementing movement into my life, getting away from that all or nothing and focusing more on just trusting that 5 minutes is enough. That if I just get on that treadmill for 5 minutes, If I want to do more, fine, perfect. But really focusing on that 5 minutes and truly devoting my time and intention to that 5 minutes, knowing and trusting myself that that is enough. I've always been like, no, I gotta go to the gym for an hour. I gotta freaking run. I gotta lift weights. I gotta do all of the things. All of those things are great. And I want to start implementing some of those things back into my life, but it's gonna take time because of how far I've let myself go and how I've tried over the years to just implement it all, which works for a minute, but then slowly my old habits and old behaviors start coming back in. And that's because I never truly developed a mindset to shift and change, to make this a lifestyle. And that's the biggest goal.
Of course, we need the star of the show. He came to say hello and give some love, so let's give Blaze the attention that he deserves.
Working with my therapist, one of the things that we worked with a lot is with my depression. My depression led to a lot of the behaviors that I had throughout my life. My overthinking, my anxiety, which my doctor or my therapist, she talked to me often about how Ketamine can actually affect my anxiety and my overthinking. So she urged me often to try to get off of that. She suggested doing an SSRI or something along those lines for my depression and for my overthinking and my anxiety. Here's where I stand with SSRIs. I do not think that there's anything wrong with taking an SSRI. I believe that they have helped many people, and I believe that there is still a place for SSRIs. I would never discredit SSRIs or say that they're bad or anything like that. I'm sharing my experience with you, and my experience with SSRIs is a while ago, probably almost 4 years ago. I had a different therapist, and this is the first time I ever saw a therapist. It wasn't a bad experience by any means, but we didn't connect like I do with my therapist now. I'm just going to throw this in there really quick because this is important. When you are at a place where you're ready to ask for help, make sure that you're with a therapist who you trust and who you connect with. Oh my gosh, I can tell that I cannot tell you enough the importance of making sure that these things fit with you. If you're seeing somebody who you're not really 100% on board with, or you don't fully connect with, don't see that therapist and go find somebody else. Because the first therapist who I saw, she was great. I was on an SSRI, but when she put me on this SSRI, I can't even tell you the name of it. I can't tell you the dose. But here's the way that I felt. I felt nothing. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I lost my sex drive. All of the things that are probably like tied to taking SSRIs. Now, did I try to adjust my dose? Did I try to change my medication? No, because I know that there's so many medications out there, so many different kinds to try that I could titrate and take a lower dose, all of the things that I could have done, but I didn't. And I realized a little bit is because I did not connect very well with this therapist. I did not want to take an SSRI.
Knowing from the past experience that I didn't want to go on SSRIs again, I realized with my current therapist that I wanted to look for just different options. And that's where I came across this women's retreat.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I just had this feeling inside of me that was just like, you need to go. So I was like, all right, we're going to go to this women's retreat. As I uncovered a little bit more about this women's retreat, I realized that they were doing a therapeutic ketamine session. And I was like, I don't know about that. Started doing research on therapeutic ketamine, talked to my therapist about it. And those are really the only two things that I did. I didn't even talk to my husband about this at first because I didn't know about it. I did know I don't do drugs. So that was kind of scary. As I started digging into therapeutic ketamine, I saw one of the biggest things that it's helping with is depression, anxiety, overthinking, PTSD, some of those biggest struggles that I've dealt with my whole life. I'm like, so there's something other than SSRIs that I could try? Let's go. Let's do it. Okay, I had a few obstacles to overcome. I had to talk to my work. My work approved it. Then I had to talk to my husband. Oh, that was the hardest thing for me to talk to him about. I didn't even tell him about therapeutic ketamine until I got home. That's a whole story in itself. However, I did talk to him about going to this women's retreat. And I was so freaking nervous about talking to him about it because this is a whole nother story for another day probably, but I've lived in this people-pleasing mentality. I hate disappointing people. I hate letting people down. I hate that when people don't understand who I am. I am growing and learning and building skills to overcome some of that. However, in this moment, that's the way I felt. That's the way I was. So I finally talked to him and, did he understand it? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't expect him to understand it. I can't fathom many men just saying, hey, I'm going to go on this men's retreat, with people who I have no idea who they are. I've never met them before. It just seems out of character, right? It just is different. And I feel like most men can't relate to that. And I talked to my therapist and I had the tools from her to help me communicate how I wanted to go.
Learning to communicate with my husband and making sure all my ducks were in a row gave me the freedom to go. So I took off to Arizona for the women's retreat, and it completely changed my life. Being surrounded by like-minded women, sharing real conversations, and experiencing therapeutic ketamine for the first time, it completely shifted everything inside of me. I've already shared one episode on ketamine, and I know there will be more to come because of how deeply therapeutic ketamine has changed me from the inside out.
After my retreat, coming home, I did talk to my husband about the therapeutic ketamine. Now, he didn't know much about it, and honestly, he didn't really have much to say about it. However, he's always been so supportive of me, and I am forever grateful for his support and his love, along with the women who I met at the retreat. Let's get into me starting Tirzepatide.
When I first got my Tirzepatide, I can't lie, I was so excited, but not because I thought this was going to be a magic fix or fix me overnight. It felt more like this was going to open up the door to actually change my life, getting rid of those quick fixes and starting to create better habits and a better structure for my life. Working with Arozona Wellness Center gave me a peace of mind too. I just knew I was working with people who I could trust. They weren't just handing me over this random shot and saying, good luck. They looked at the whole picture of my hormones, my health, my goals, and honestly, that mattered more than anything else. Now, 7 weeks in, the changes aren't huge. You will see my side-by-side pictures from when I first started taking my Tirzepatide to my 7th shot. There is a difference, but it's small. And that's exactly how it should be, slow and steady. The biggest shift for me hasn't been the outside. It's been all on the inside. That constant food noise that used to run my day, it has quieted down. And because of that quietness, I've been able to choose differently, focusing more on my protein intake, how much water I'm getting, how is the food that I'm eating affecting my body, and staying consistent with my vitamins. And it's not just about the injections, it's me building habits around it, waking up early, moving my body, taking quiet time in the evenings. It's a whole structure that's supporting the life I actually want to live. So yeah, Tirzepatide is a tool, but the change is me showing up every day, building this little by little, and if you need to hear this, getting help is okay. You don't have to do this alone. You get to choose the life you want and start with the small, steady steps. One of the biggest things of advice that I could provide for you is don't give up in the lull. So when you start to see that scale and it is a little bit heavier than it was yesterday, or if you're weighing weekly, don't give up because progress is not linear. Consistency is not linear. You're going to have your ups and your downs. And guess what? We learn all throughout the way.
So don't give up during those times. The fact that I've chosen to give up alcohol has changed my life immensely. I never realized how big of an impact that alcohol has had in my life, except for the last 2 years working with my therapist. One of the things that she said, one of our latest conversations when we were talking, is it seems like when you choose to bring alcohol back into your life, it seems like it starts to kind of take over. And that's where you start to feel that depression, which, alcohol is a depressant. Why wouldn't I feel depressed, right? So over time, it's like I do good, and I'll be in control, if that's the right word to say, but I'll have control and I'll have one drink, or I won't drink at all, or there'll be times where I'll have a couple, and I'd go through spurts like this. And then all of a sudden, when I start to let it back into my life, alcohol actually really starts controlling my life. It truly takes a hold on how I live my life and my daily thoughts.
The choice to give up alcohol really wasn't easy, but I asked myself, what if I looked 365 days from now? How would I feel? And the truth is, I knew my life would be so much lighter, more free, and just more of me. Alcohol had this hold on me, just like food once did. And letting go has given me back my energy, my focus, and my presence. I've even started enjoying some non-alcoholic options and let me reshape how I see my day-to-day. This choice isn't for everyone, but it was right for me, and it's been one of the most powerful decisions I've ever made.
All right, that's where I'm going to leave you today. That was a lot of information, so if you're still here, thank you so much for following along, because every step that I've chosen to take, whether it's been my food, whether it's been my alcohol, Tirzepatide, the women's retreat, all of those things has been such a good impact in my life, and they've been all worth it. So I just want to encourage you to find a life that is worthy of living for you. And what I'm doing might not work for you, and that is okay. Just know that you're not alone. If my story connects with you, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're working on in your life. And if you think someone else might benefit from the life that I've been sharing, please share it with them. This helps me as a small creator and just gets the word out there, because we are not supposed to be doing this alone. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's about to come and all of the mess in between that I keep learning and growing. Thank you so much for being a part of this family. Always be real. Hello, welcome back to my... Oh boy. Well... Oh, that's funny.